Time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
I want to start with some positive stuff. Is that okay? Can we do that for once? Once in a blue moon? Is that all right if we start with some positive stuff, some amazing things that are happening in the world/universe, folks? Can we do that? Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning into The Burning Truth. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. So here's the goal for today and tomorrow. The goal for today and tomorrow is for me to move faster than I have been since I've been back from vacation, because I feel like I have a ton of stuff to say, and I obviously don't have enough time to say it. I rarely do on a Monday after a weekend, let alone 2 weeks away with a bunch of big stuff. Haven't even addressed the Arlington fiasco and the lies about Trump and everything else that happened with the news media there. I'm probably not going to get to it. So I usually am one of those folks who goes on vacation or takes time off and comes back and don't really address a lot of the other stuff because it's like, oh, it's already been done. Like everybody else has covered it. And I used to work with somebody who was like, yeah, but they haven't heard my perspective on it. And it always sounded so snooty to me. And maybe it's because that particular individual was just a turd of a human. It's possible. So it just rubbed me the wrong way. And so I would come back from vacation frequently with this company and I would just like ignore stuff that had happened. And next thing you know, like my boss would come in like, how come you didn't address this or that? I'm like, well, it happened like a week ago. And he's like, yeah, but they haven't heard you talk about it. And so it kind of changed my mindset. But I've thought about it for a week or two, and then I have a lot to say. And then I tend to talk too much. I don't talk a lot in person, but when I hit this microphone, I talk too much. And I feel like I've been doing that the past few days on you guys. Some of you love it. Some of you don't. I'm never going to please everybody. However, it bothers me. I've always had a kind of a fast-paced show for the most part. And then I would have these like study session type things where it's time to go to school and break things down and go more in depth. And I haven't really been doing that. I just feel like I've been doing a lot of long form stuff. And that isn't typically how I like to conduct the show. So I like there to be a little bit more energy, a little bit faster moving, hitting more stuff, and giving you a more well-rounded thing. I don't think that I've done that since I've got back from Europe. So I apologize about that if it's bothered you. If it hasn't bothered you and you're like, I don't understand, I really liked what was going on the past couple of weeks, or the past week, I'm glad that you liked it. I really am. You can watch the live stream by going to Rumble. Go to rumble.com/Casey the host, rumble.com/Casey the host. You can go ahead and what the heck is going on here? I don't know. I got to stop reading your comments, too. I can get off the comment page. You're on your own, live chat. Okay. Positive things. I love space. If I didn't have children, I would live in space. Okay, so you don't have a spaceship. Don't care. I'd find a way. I'd build a ladder. I hear you can do that, Morgan. There's something about that in the Bible, I think, about some guy building like a tower or something like that to heaven. Like I can totally do that, I think. So I love space. Like I love it. I am born in the wrong generation. I want to be out there doing the whole privateer living in space thing. Like that's just kind of what I love. And this has just been a heck of a week for space. And I am one of those people who feels a little bit like the American spirit has been swallowed up by nonsense. And I know that probably everybody listening to this, regardless of your politics, probably feels the same way. But it has been swallowed up by nonsense for decades now. And we ignore the really important, great things that happen. And it's more than just a, if it bleeds, it leads mentality. It's more than that. It is so much more than that. We have given up as a country, we have given up, maybe not on an individual level, but on a national level, we have given up on embracing our exceptionalism. And damn it, we're exceptional. You remember when this was a big story about, whether or not Americans were exceptional, and Obama would not say that we were exceptional. Remember that crap? He would just refuse to say it. He's like, oh, well, everybody else is exceptional. No. Okay? No. I just spent 2 weeks seeing some of the greatest feats of engineering in Western civilization's history. And as amazing and beautiful as some of that stuff was, folks, it is nothing compared to the achievements that Americans have had since the early 1900s. Maybe it's not as beautiful. You've heard me criticize that endlessly on the show over the past 20 plus years. But the things that Americans have done, this entire world exists the way that it is right now because of us and only us. And it really is staggering when you dive into the exceptionalism that is the United States of America and the American spirit. You do not have the American spirit anywhere else in the world. And it's one of those reasons why, yes, even though I disagree with Mike Pence on his stance on this, where he says, oh, we can secure the border and fully fund a war with Russia and Ukraine. We can't anymore. There was a time where we probably could have. We can't anymore. But he believes in that American exceptionalism, and I'm giving him a lot of grace here, okay? So for those of you who go, no, Casey, he's just a rhino, whatever. I'm giving him a lot of grace. I'm hard on Mike Pence. I like the man personally a lot. He is a good human being. I just vehemently disagree with him on very, very, very important issues. And I do believe that his time has passed. But he's a nice man. He's a decent man. I think he's been unfairly targeted. And I only bring it up just because of the idea that, hey, we're Americans, we can do it. Because nowhere else in the world does that attitude exist. Nowhere. You know what one of the more frustrating things for the group when we were in Europe was? All right, what time do you wake up in the morning to take your kids to school? How many of you make coffee at home, or how many of you pick it up on the way into school, right? So, all right, what's your kids starting at? We'll just average it out, 8 o'clock. That seem fair, Morgan? 8 o'clock for most people, right? So you leave home at what, 7:30 if you're dropping the kid off? Maybe a little bit earlier than that, 7:15, 7:30. You're driving to school. Maybe you need a cup of coffee before or after you drop the kids off at school. So what do? You swing into a coffee shop, right, Morgan? You take your favorite one. You go to Scooters, or you go one of the other ones that is terrible and awful and horrible. So it just depends on which one you're going to go to. Can we get Scooters as an advertiser for the show, Morgan? Can you call them, please? Because I love them. Like, seriously. Like, that place is amazing. That is the second best coffee in the entire tri-state audience that we speak to every single day. Of course, the first best coffee is Casey's Burning Brew. We all know that. My coffee is amazing. But what if you couldn't do that? Okay, so you're in Europe. They drink coffee in Europe. Sure they do. Ask me what time they open. Right? You're nodding your head. Do you know this, Morgan? You know this about Europe? You're not going to get a morning cup of coffee in Europe. It's not going to happen.
It's like a leisurely thing, isn't it? It's like an afternoon cup of coffee or tea, right?
And they do espresso mostly. So like their normal coffee is an Americano, which of course is not normal coffee. I found drip coffee one time in 4 countries. One time I found drip coffee, and it was bad. Now, I told you previously, like when you go to Ireland, it's all instant coffee. So there is Starbucks in Ireland, but there's no coffee shops in Ireland. Well, there wasn't. What was it? That was 2016, I think. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was 2016. Yeah, it was the Trump election. So it was 2016. That's when we were in Ireland. there was a couple of Starbucks that you ran into, which we never went to because, again, we're there in Ireland. We're not going to go in there. Trust me, this is relevant to what I'm talking about. I promise. It seems like I'm spinning off out of control again, and I just told you I wasn't going to do that. But in Ireland, it's all instant coffee. It's all Nescafe. Everything, everywhere. Could not get a good cup of coffee in Ireland anywhere. Love the country, love the people. Don't like their government very much, but had a blast in Ireland. Never once had good bacon, good coffee. Did not exist in Ireland, okay? Massive character flaws of the nation. So we go to the UK, we go to Scotland, we go to Paris. There's real coffee everywhere, but it's more espresso. There's really no drip coffee. So they have these little tiny cups of coffee. Now, they taste great. They have a lot of caffeine in them. But with Americans, like the drip coffee is a ritual for us. It's almost like tea in England. So we have this ritual that we go get coffee in the morning, or if we don't make it ourselves. There's no coffee shops that are open. Guess what else isn't open in the morning, Morgan? Not a damn thing. Nothing. You know why? Because Europeans don't wake up. They sleep half of the day. So by 10 o'clock, you might meander into a store that is open. And then, if you're lucky, 9 p.m., everything is closed down. There is no spirit at all of working in Europe. It doesn't exist. Which is why when you find it in Europe, those people are so hyper successful. But you just don't find it. There's no culture of effort. There's no culture of work. There's no culture of productivity. A good friend of mine, and Samuel, if you're listening right now, I apologize. And I'm going to get some of his stuff wrong because this is so many years ago. He's from Australia. He's from Canberra. And he came to visit the United States. And he started in Los Angeles, and he rented a car, and he drove all the way to New York. And, of course, he visited my family and friends in Las Vegas when I was there. That's when he and I became friends. And then he came to Indiana, where I linked up with him and took him shooting and all of that stuff. But I remember asking him, like, how much time do you have off, dude? And he was like, like 3 months. It's like a standard vacation in Australia. I said, what? Like, what are you talking? And it may not have been 3 months, but it was some god-awful amount of time that he could literally fly across the world, rent a car in L.A., drive all the way across the United States of America, making all of these 2 and 3 day stops everywhere, and still go back home and have vacation from vacation to recoup and recover before he went back to work. And Australia, at that time, was second only to the United States of America in how many hours an individual worked per year. And I was like, wow, if people in Australia get that much time off on average, and it was an average thing. He kind of explained it all to me, but it's been so many years, I don't remember the details. So again, I apologize if I screwed some of that up, Samuel, but there just isn't this spirit of, oh, I'm an American, I'll do it. I always tell you, the American economy will always find a way. We will always find a way. It doesn't matter if we have 1,000 Joe Bidens in a row. We will find a way to make money and be successful and be innovative. Why? Because we're Americans, damn it, and that's what we do. Our entire history in its short span on Earth is full of Americans doing crap no one else in the world would ever dare to do. That spirit is dead, except here. And there is a massive effort to destroy that spirit in this country right now. And it was first put on display by Barack Obama when he said we were not exceptional. And that is a load of crap. And so we've got two amazing stories here about some of that exceptionalism that was, well, previously universal. Didn't matter where you were on the socioeconomic, the racial, the gender, the political scale. None of it mattered because we all, as Americans, understood one basic thing. When it comes to space, we rule. Nobody competes with us. We are the innovators. We are the pioneers. We are the dominant people in space. Period. End of story. Other people are in space, because we allow them to be there. Usually because we invited them. That's the truth. So when we talk about space, it used to be that Americans would look up at it and go, that's us, no matter what. And we all had this collective national pride about it. And now you have the most amazing things consistently happening in space, and it's rarely even covered. Now, I'm sorry, but every time I see one of the SpaceX rockets land, I flip my damn lid. You ever seen a rocket land, Morgan? Goes up into space, lands. That is mind-blowing that can even happen. So every time I see it, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, we're witnessing some of the most amazing engineering that can only be achieved here. And yet we ignore some of the greatest achievements of this country because I believe they don't want to highlight the best part of us. I truly believe that. So I've got a few stories about space that I want to talk about next. I know that was long-winded and I told you I wasn't going to be long-winded. Damn it. Maybe next week, okay? But I'm telling you, you got some stuff to be really proud of here, and you should be. We got more coming up on The Burning Truth. All right. A quick turnaround. The one day they decided to go and add a bunch of my commercial breaks back. All right, so I'm going to give you the short story about American exceptionalism, and then we'll go into the other one. They're all different. I mean, it's tied to the category of American exceptionalism. They all involve space, but they're all different stories. So for the very first time in human history, ladies and gentlemen, we were able to see an aurora on Mars. Do you know how we did that, Morgan? With a freaking robot. You know where the robot came from, Morgan? Freaking Earth on a freaking rocket made by freaking Americans. That's how. And I think that's pretty damn cool. I think that's amazing. I think that should be a headline story. I don't think anything neck flap Kamala Harris has to say is more important than that achievement by the United States of America. And it's completely ignored. You got two other things that involve space and American exceptionalism. They're actually kind of tied together, different stories, but they're actually kind of tied together. But you realize we had one of the most historic moments ever in the history of all mankind just happen? And it's a footnote? It's a footnote on the news. Travesty. We got more coming up. You're tuned into The Burning Truth.
The Burning Truth with Casey Hendrickson.
Oh, just as a news flash, just keep an eye on Springfield, Ohio. Boy, there are a lot of people in Springfield, Ohio coming out and saying, yeah, man, my cat's missing. Weird. That's so weird. It's almost like the news media, once again, just we'll say it's jumping the gun because we're going to be kind. Remember, 2024 is an effort for me to be a more kind human being. So America's awesome. America's great. And I wanted to just kind of do a couple of positive stories. And then I want to dive into one that, it's a mixture of positive and negative. So for the very first time ever, the first time, we have seen an aurora on Mars. This has never happened before, folks, ever in human history. So we observed an aurora on Mars with a robot. And I think that's pretty dope. Now, when we set up our base of operations on Mars, you've probably heard me talk about that. You all know that I'm a 3D printer. You know how we're building the base? We are dropping robots on Mars, like these pods, these capsules, and they're going to open up after they land on Mars, and they're going to 3D print the base from the surface of Mars. So they're going to 3D print the Mars dust base. Morgan, 3D printers itself is pretty cool, okay? Landing a giant 3D printer on another planet and having it 3D print its own house is like the most amazing thing ever. And okay, well, neck flap Harris is she's floating around on the news. I just don't. It's important. Don't get me wrong. It's just like boy, have we just misplaced our priorities. To highlight this, and I know that he wasn't an American, but do you remember when we landed? Remember when we landed that spacecraft on the asteroid? Do you remember that? We landed a spacecraft on an asteroid while the asteroid was moving, because that's what asteroids do. We landed on an asteroid. What was the story? Do you remember the story, Morgan? The guy who landed on the asteroid had an inappropriate, sexist button-up shirt because he had Japanese hentai pictures on it. Remember that? So he had cartoon girls on his button-up shirt. Why? Because he's a geek, and he's probably into it, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I don't care. And he was the whole story. This guy's being interviewed about this major achievement for all of mankind, and the only thing that the crazies cared about was what was printed on his shirt. It's probably the only button-up that man owns. And he's like, I don't have anything to wear. Well, you're not wearing a T-shirt. And so he grabbed the one that he had. And feminists were outraged. That became the story. Not that he landed on an asteroid. You know how almost impossible that is? To me, that was the perfect illustration of how messed up we have become. Folks, did you watch it today? Did you watch it, Morgan? Did you just see clips of it on TV, or did you watch it? Did you watch it? You did not watch it. You only saw clips on TV. Shame on you. Okay, 1 hour and 50 minutes in. Go watch it now. For the first time in human history, a commercial spacewalk took place. And guess what? You watched it live. You watched it on a camera that was inside of the capsule. You watched it on a camera that was outside of the capsule. You watched it on a camera from inside, well, not inside, but on the helmet of the astronaut himself. First person. Folks, do you realize what you just witnessed for the first time ever in all of human history? You witnessed the first instance that a human being was exposed to the vacuum of space and emerged from a spacecraft into the void of space from their perspective for the first time ever. And it is, well, I guess do not disturb doesn't mean anything, huh? That's probably my 2 o'clock that was supposed to call me at 2 o'clock. From his perspective, a helmet cam. Am I being like overly dramatic here, Morgan, or is that like, am I just a little? She says a little too much. I don't know, man. I was enthralled. Go watch the video. It's 1 hour and 50 minutes in. 1 hour and 50 minutes in. That's when it starts getting good. That's when they break the seal on the thing. They go through the whole process to make sure they're not going to get sucked out into space and all of that stuff. And you can watch the astronauts emerge. They don't all the way come out because they're testing brand new spacesuits that have never been worn before. They are testing everything in those spacesuits. They're testing the craft itself, and they're coming out, and you can see all of it. You actually watch them come up in the brightness where Earth is completely illuminated, and you watch the Earth disappear in darkness while they are out there doing a spacewalk. It is one of the most amazing things that we have ever seen in all of human history. And we have a story about migrants in Springfield, Ohio on right now, which is an important deal, by the way. I mean, it is. And they played clips, okay? They've played clips of it, but can you just take some time today to just appreciate how amazing what just happened this week is? I feel like I should play the bit. It's been a while since I've done it, but I want to. I'm not going to right now, but I should. And maybe tomorrow for Friday. Louis C.K. And I know some of you crazy ladies out there still think that he's a bad guy. He's not, okay? I'm sorry, but if you're a bit of a pervert, and he is, nothing wrong with that. If you're a bit of a pervert and you ask ladies if it's okay if you diddle yourself in front of them and they go, oh yeah, we would totally love to see that, and then you do, maybe not get mad at the guy for doing it. Just an observation. All right? I know he's rehabbed his career and all that stuff, but it's not nearly where it was before. But he had one of the most amazing bits ever, I believe, in the history of comedy, because great comedy comes from, well, truth. And the whole bit was, everything is amazing and nobody is happy. And there's a moment in there where he talks about people complaining about flying in an airplane. And he's like, you're flying through the air on a massive piece of steel. Like, really? Like, you're in a chair in the sky and you're mad? And yes, I mean, we all have our frustrations with flying and everything else. But if you stop to think about it, it's like a stop and smell the roses sort of a thing. How amazing is that? You're listening to me right now on something that would have had people burned at the stake in the 1200s. The ability for me to even be able to convey my voice to all of you on radio is an amazing feat of humanity. The ability for you to be able to listen to me on the internet or on your television. Yes, I know that's still the internet. Or if you're watching me live through the camera that is pointed at me right now, a camera that I can literally, I'm using that a little too, I can literally click on 3 right now and you can see Morgan because it rotates. There's Morgan. Hi, Morgan. Say hello to everybody. It's just crazy. I mean, if I click on 5, then I might give you the Louis C.K. treatment, so I'm not going to do that because it goes right into my lap. But the camera rotates around and I can control the camera. I can wave my hand right now and that camera will follow me around the studio when I walk around. And it will still stream to all of you. It's pretty darned amazing. And, you know, it's just like, I know that we've gotten kind of spoiled with all of the awesome things that are around us. And because, you know, we're a consumerist society, like we consume and dispose of great things very, very rapidly. But you just had private citizens walk in space. Something that was never supposed to happen. You saw an aurora on Mars for the very first time. Did never see it before. It's just, for me, take some time. I talked a little bit about slowing down for your family yesterday, and I mean that. But take some time and just appreciate some of the awesome stuff that's around you, because there is a lot. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be a happier person. Maybe you won't care as much about, you know, Neck Flap Harris and what she has to say and all of that stuff. I don't know. I hope so. I hope you appreciate those beautiful things. But sure would be nice if the news media and the culture would allow you to appreciate those things without crapping on them all the time. After all, you got more important things to discuss and talk about, like who Taylor Swift is going to be voting for. Right? So speaking of space, speaking of private companies in space, there's a very interesting thing that happened with the FCC chair. And no, it's not involving a lie about me, but there's something else involving the FCC chair. And it involves Starlink. And I think you should be concerned. We'll talk about that coming up on The Burning Truth. Do you think that Kamala Harris doesn't have outside rallies because the breeze might come up and catch the flap of her neck and she'll blow away? I think she doesn't do them outside. I mean, you notice that? I'm just saying, Trump with his alleged fake hair goes outside all the time. It's amazing how that seems to work out. Just questions I have, ladies and gentlemen. So the FCC, they got a chairwoman. She is human scum, but her name is Jessica Rosenworcel. And Oh, I guess I probably shouldn't call her human scum, right, Morgan? Because allegedly I have broken FCC laws. Okay. You say so, cupcake. Anyway, in calling for more competition in the space economy. Well, that's interesting. How do you get more competition in the space economy, especially when you're talking about Starlink? How do you do that? I don't know. Jeopardy music, maybe? How do you... That's another thing that's amazing, too, is how often a Starlink satellite, well, I should say a Starlink rocket, well, no, SpaceX rocket with a bunch of Starlinks goes up into space, because that happens several times a month. FCC chairwoman says that it's time for new players to step up and compete against SpaceX's Starlink, alluding to the satellite internet system as an emerging monopoly. Well, you know, they're not the only one out there in space. There's other services that do provide internet from space. It's just that they do it better. And they have a lot of satellites, so their coverage is great. Google was actually doing the same thing. I don't know why she's calling for more competition here. So Elon Musk, and here's kind of my thought on Elon Musk. I think he's going to be the greatest and worst thing to ever happen to us. So Elon Musk, I believe, is a decent guy who wants to do the right thing. But Elon Musk is going to die one day, and somebody's going to take over his empire. And I'm not convinced that that person is going to be a stable individual. Catch my drift? And if we invest too much in everything Elon because we like Elon, when Elon is gone, who takes over after Elon, and will that person be Captain Evil? And if that person is Captain Evil, they're going to have a lot of tools in their war chest to do whatever they want. So the whole point of Starlink is to cover the planet with enough of the Starlink satellites that you can provide high-speed internet access to every single spot on the planet. That's the goal. He laid this out when he announced the project, and consistently when they do updates on it, like, that's the thing. Google said that they were going to do the same thing. So Google was originally going to be a competitor here. I don't know if Google's still doing that. I haven't looked into it, or if they're just so far behind that, you know, maybe getting into the space might be too difficult. I'm not sure. Last I checked, Google doesn't have a rocket, but, you know, you can contract with somebody. The one thing that's clear to me as the head of the Federal Communications Commission is that every communications market that has competition is stronger. Well, yeah, competition absolutely breeds innovation. 100%. Like, that's why we hate Obamacare. Competition does breed innovation. There's no doubt, okay? It brings prices down. It improves performance. It's better for everybody involved. And those who don't adapt die out. She was also asked what her thoughts were about promoting competition in the satellite industry in light of tensions between SpaceX's Starlink business and new rivals such as Verizon, which is preparing to launch its own cellular satellite services. Okay. Now, Verizon has an issue, though. Verizon's been around for a long time. So Verizon has a reputation. Some people love it. A lot of people don't. So they will try SpaceX because SpaceX is new. They know Elon Musk. They have faith in his ability to create things that work. And so they're going to naturally, I think, kind of gravitate towards SpaceX because it's the newer, more different thing. That doesn't mean that Verizon won't do a great job. It's just that Verizon is a very polarizing company. People either love them or hate them, depending on their personal experience as a customer. If you're with SpaceX, you have less of that. In response, Rosenworcel said that competition is necessary, pointing to the economic benefits. We see lower prices and more innovation, and honestly, space should be no exception. Oh, okay. Yeah, theoretically, but we're also not talking about hanging a wire on a pole outside of a farm in Iowa. We're talking about launching a satellite on a rocket ship. Not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. More coming up.
Podcasts by Federated Media.